Going on? I hope you guys are having a good day. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people, and also the Black Financial Channel where we're simulcasting. I see a lot of you are excited about today's conversation. Today, we get a chance to talk about Black faces in high places. Yes, Lord Jesus. We're gonna talk about some interesting topics here. And let me just tell you this: the two brothers that are here today are distinguished scholars. These are the types of men that should be better known than your average rapper. We tend to hide our really intelligent Black men that are doing great things. But in this space we don't do that. And so, without further ado, I'd like to introduce these brothers one by one. Dr. Randall Pinkett. He's the chairman and CEO of BCT Partners, and you also might know him. He was on The Apprentice years ago, right? Is that right? Did I get that
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Yeah. And he did a pretty he had a pretty infamous couple scenes with Omarosa. And at some point, I want to ask you about that, man, because I still remember being I don't remember what the scene was exactly, but I remember being real mad at her in that moment. And I'd like to get some of your thoughts on that a little bit later. And also, we also have Dr. Jeffrey Robinson from Rutgers University. Now, Dr. Robinson is the Prudential Chair in Business at Rutgers. He's also the academic director of the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship. And so I want to say hello to Dr. Robinson. How you doing today, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having us.
All right, great to see you. Great to see you. All right, so everybody in here, say hello to these brothers as you come into the chat, and also please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe, all that stuff. You know what it is. We're building Black media over here, and we'd love your support. All right, so let me just start from the beginning. So the title of your book, you guys wrote a book together called Black Faces in High Places, and I'm gonna tell you what, that title really got my attention. I thought it was a brilliant title, and it looked to me like it was kind of an application to in our space we call it the corporate plantation. In terms of just the challenges that Black folks go through when they're trying to climb the corporate ladder, trying to get to the top, trying to break through the glass ceilings. So I guess I'll start with you, Dr. Pinkett. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Absolutely, and as you said, the name of the book should sound familiar because the phrase has some history. Mary McLeod Bethune once said, "My people will never be satisfied until they see Black faces in high places." Subsequent to that, there was a book called Black Faces in High Places, subtitle Negroes in Government. That's how dated that book was. Dr. Robinson and I, recognizing that the conversation about Black leadership is heightened in the moment that we're in 2022, we decided to reclaim this phrase in some ways and to put our own spin on what it means to us. And I'll simplify it by saying this: for us to be a Black face in a high place is to acknowledge two things. First, that you stand on the shoulders of giants. So you have an obligation to be a giant so others can stand on your shoulders. Don't forget where you came from and who sacrificed for you to be there. And second, there are three words we use in the book, Dr. Boyce, which you'll appreciate. You must be authentic, you must be unapologetic, and you must be strategic. So when you embody those three characteristics, authentic, unapologetic, and strategic about how you pull the levers at your disposal for the benefit of our community, understanding that if you're not pulling those levers, somebody's pulling levers for their community. And that's the essence of this book. And Dr. Robinson can say more about kind of what motivated us, but that gives you a quick and simple overview of what is the spirit of this book.
Wow. Okay, so authentic. Everybody in the chat, type some of these words in for us. So and maybe type the one that means the most to you. Authentic, unapologetic, and strategic. I like that. So it's like SAU. That's how I like to remember stuff with acronyms. So I see SAU: strategic, authentic, unapologetic. So you got to have the sauce. Because a lot of our leaders ain't got no sauce. a lot of our so-called leaders. I mean, when you said that word apologetic, Dr. Robinson, when I heard unapologetic, I thought about just in public how often we see Black men in particular apologizing for things. I'll name some examples that maybe don't necessarily fit in the corporate space, but kind of do, because these guys have corporate relationships, and it was the corporate relationships that led to the apologies. I think about Nick Cannon, and when Nick Cannon did a couple of interviews that were a little bit racy, he was apologizing, then he re-apologized, and he re-apologized. And I know a lot of people in our space were just pissed off. Like, why do you have to apologize 8 times? Just apologize once, keep it moving, or don't apologize at all. Another example was Snoop Dogg got real upset about something with Gayle King, and he said some things that I at that time I said it's inappropriate. He shouldn't have said what he said, but then he was apologizing and apologizing. And I think that there are a lot of people who feel, and why were they apologizing? Why? Well, because somebody's pulling the purse strings. It's about their money. It's about those corporate things, right? So I think, Dr. Robinson, that there are just some people in our community who are just tired of us always apologizing, always, almost like you're apologizing just for being Black. Can you kind of speak to some of that? And then also your spin on the book and why you participate and things like that.
Sure. So, when we were thinking in the book, what makes the Black faces in high places, an important sort of phrase. Most of the time people think about it in a negative sense. They think about people who have gotten to the top and then forgot where they came from. Or that, we say things like the Black faces in high places aren't doing enough for the community. And so when we talk about being unapologetically Black, we're talking about people who say, yeah, I am a Black man, I am a Black woman, and I have a community that I come from. And I have no problem directing resources to that community for the betterment of the community. You don't have to apologize. There's other folks who come to the table and they make their statements about how they're going to contribute to their communities. And we, as Black people, sometimes we kind of cower from those moments, and that's not proper. That's not what's going to make us as a people to progress either. Dr. Pinkett said it already. If other folks in other communities are advocating for their resources, for their foundations, for their schools, for their nonprofit organizations, for their businesses, for that matter, why aren't we doing it for ourselves? And so that's where we're coming from when we talk about being unapologetic. We want you to be strategic too, though. And so the subtitle of the book is 10 Strategic Actions to Reach the Top and to Stay There. And let me say it again. It's 10 strategic actions for Black professionals to reach the top and stay there. We are real specific about that. Once again, unapologetic about who our audience is and what we're trying to do. So, there's a lot in that, right? There's a lot in that about moving up that ladder. But I don't want people to think the book is only targeted at the corporate folks who are in corporations, because we spend at least half of our time talking about entrepreneurship. Systems change, transforming systems. We talk about how we can be more structured, strategic about giving back to our community and to worthy causes. We talk about how to support social entrepreneurs who are doing things directly to impact our community in positive ways. So there's multiple layers there. But if you're in corporate, there's something here for you. And we're also putting a marker down and saying, here's some things you need to be doing to be an entrepreneur inside of a corporation, directing some of those resources and opportunities to our people.
Well, I like that. One thing I like about the book, Dr. Pinkett, is, and what I really like about our discussion, because I have so much respect for both of you guys, is it's nice to see these bridges being built. And maybe we're not the first generation to do it, but these bridges being built between those who have just rejected the establishment and those who are working with the establishment and getting things done, and I know that, and I like the way, Dr. Robinson, I like the way you highlighted the fact that the book isn't just for Black professionals, right? Sure, if you're a professional, you can use these strategies and it will help you, but it sounds to me like, Dr. Pinkett, you're also talking about not just climbing a ladder, but even building ladders. Or maybe being in spaces where let's say it's just Black folks dealing with Black folks and you are a leader. There's a lot of strategy that comes into that. And maybe we don't talk about that enough. What are your thoughts on that?
You hit the nail on the head, Dr. Boyce. This book is actually a sequel. I sometimes call it the remix. Our first book together was Black Faces in White Places. And in that context, we were focused specifically on environments where you see very few representations of us. You're the only one or one of the only few. This book is focused specifically on the differences in when you're trying to get to the top and when you arrive at the top. And as you know, when you're in a position of leadership, decision-making, authority, and power, it's a different set of challenges and expectations than when you're trying to get there. And I'll say it differently, that if you don't know who you are before you become a black face in a high place, it is too late. Because metaphorically, the winds of change and the seas of pressure are more violent, more disruptive, more aggressive as you go higher and higher in your career, that if you don't know who you are, that is kind of your anchor, and you don't know what direction you're going, that's your compass, those winds and seas will easily blow you off course. And so we begin the book, as Dr. Robinson mentioned, off these 10 strategic actions, but they're cumulative, meaning strategic action number 1 is the foundation of all 10 of the strategic actions, and that is self-determination. Self-determination is knowing who you are, your anchor, knowing where you're going, your compass, because if you don't have that down before you arrive, you're in trouble.
I like that a lot. And in case anybody wants to know, I mean, this is why, I mean, I'm just getting to know Dr. Robinson, but I like Dr. Robinson because he was a friend of Dr. Pinkett's. And also we have another mutual friend, Dr. Lakita Blockson, that I've known for a long time. And the reason I say that is because, you know, when I first met you, Dr. Pinkett, I remember thinking, I wonder, you know, what kind of brother is he? You know what I mean? You think that with everybody, you just don't know. You know, you don't know if it's a person who has become successful by completely rejecting the Black community, or if it's a person who's been able to, as you mentioned, find that anchor. And hearing that anchor statement you just made, I love that because it really explains that, you know, you get in this world that a lot of people are going to be blowing you in different directions. And if you don't know who you are, then you can end up losing yourself completely. And so let me ask this. I'll go back to you, Dr. Robinson. So at Rutgers, you are the director of the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship is obviously an important topic in the community. You know, that's next to my heart for sure. And I look forward to learning more about the kind of work you're doing there. How do you feel? Let's say that let's apply this book to entrepreneurs. How might an entrepreneur use some of the strategies in your book in order to be a more effective leader?
Yeah, great question. And so just to put it in context, in the book, we have, we have 4 different sections of the book. We call them 4 different levels. And the third level is all about being entrepreneurial. It's using that entrepreneurship mindset, that entrepreneurial mindset to make the difference. Now, if you're inside a company, yeah, entrepreneurship. I'll hold that topic for another time. But the other part, of course, the other part of that coin is the entrepreneur who creates something, whether it's for a purpose or whether it's for a profit. Either way, you're creating something. So we talk a bit about the creation part. We did a bit of that in our first book. In this book, we go to the master class. We say, well, what's next? Because we got a whole lot of folks who have the small business with only a couple of people, maybe only themselves as an employee. And no doubt that's a great starting point. But how do we move our mindsets also from small business to business enterprise? How do we move from being a social entrepreneur who created one entity to something that can be scaled up across the country to actually affect systems change? And we got some great stories about entrepreneurs who took ideas and scaled them up to multi-million and even billion-dollar businesses. We've interviewed Kathy Hughes and Bob Johnson and really tried to understand a bit more about what they do. And I think that if there's one thing I would say to the entrepreneurs in the audience that I think will interest them from the book is that we chart out a path that we've taken. I mean, Dr. Pinkett has led a company, BCT Partners, from our dorm room. I was one of the co-founders. From our dorm room to being on the Black Enterprise 100. You know, from making a few $100s to now $26 million and making the list of Black Enterprise 100, Inc. 5,000, and still growing.
And notice he didn't even smile when you said that because the brother's that focused and serious. He got that Tiger Woods face. I'm talking about pre 09 Tiger Woods, not the post. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, but you're right, because he's already thinking about the next part. So how do you get there? So we looked at the patterns. We needed to know it for ourselves, but we also needed to be able to help people understand how you do the joint ventures, how you do the acquisitions and the mergers, how you think about putting together the consortiums and the coalitions to make it happen, whether that is for making the next million and 10 million and $100 million, or maybe it's for affecting 100,000 Black youth in America or more. You know, that's the kind of scale and thinking that we need. So that's where we're at. That's where we're coming from. So strategic action 8 and 9 deal with both thinking and acting like an entrepreneur and transforming systems. That's where we've got to be. That's what we got in the book.
And I'll add, because you referenced the interviews with Bob Johnson and Kathy Hughes, and I think we tell a story in the book, Dr. Boyce, that has not been told, which is we came to find out from their respective perspectives that at one point BET and Radio 1 were going to merge into a single company. I had no idea. Bob told the story, Kathy told the story. And as you know, that would have been an unprecedented integration of two Black-owned media giants. If you wanted to advertise for Black people, television, radio, etc., you'd have had to go to this merged entity. And to make a long story short, what upended the merger, which was written up, legal contracts, ready to sign, ready to consummate, what upended it? Egos. Boyce,
I call that the Kobe Shaq problem. You win championships and you can't get along. Go ahead, please continue.
Oh, exactly. And all the discussions about who's going to run it and for how long and who's reporting to who, and they could not get that deal to the finish line. And Bob Johnson said, and he may or may not be right, he says, I don't know of any major Black-owned companies that have ever consummated a merger of that scale. And it only speaks to this idea that for us to grow our enterprises, it's not some external force that may be holding us back. It may be us. And the more we can humble ourselves, like Dr. Robinson and I and our two partners, the four of us, I call New Edition with no Bobby Brown. We've been together for 30 years in business since college when we were 21. I just turned 51 on Saturday.
Well,
humble yourself.
New Edition with no Bobby Brown.
Amen.
What kind of a great group would that be? I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Well, everybody, in case you just came in, I'm talking with Dr. Randall Pinkett, who's the chairman and CEO of BCT Partners. Also, Dr. Jeffrey Robinson, who is the president or prudential chair of business at Rutgers University and the academic director of the Center for Urban Entrepreneurship. If you could take 1 second, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up. And I want to remind everybody, don't forget that you can go to the Black Business School. We have a lot of great stuff happening there right now. So if you're interested, please feel free to take a look at boycewatkins.com. The URL's on the screen. All right, so let me go to you, Dr. Pinkett, with this question. Then, you and I met each other through a guy that's just one of the greatest human beings in the history of this planet, in my opinion, Dr. George C. Frazier, and he runs his Power Networking Conference every year. And I know how honored I've been to be a part of that. And going back to what you said about ego, I was really impressed with at least a couple of things with Dr. Frazier, which are probably connected. Which one is his obvious extraordinary skill in networking, and I've just seen the power that accrues with the ability to understand the power of doing things together. Just how great you can be when you work together. And that's something I encourage everybody to pay attention to. How you form relationships, how you get along with other people, so important. And I think it's important to state that because we have so much that we're seeing in media that is built on that ego that you refer to. And that actually links to the second piece. Dr. Frazier also impressed me with the level of humility that he has in forming those relationships. He understands that relationship building is about sort of like when he talks to people, he makes it about you, not about himself. And I just think, and that's also strategic, right? In the sense of saying, look, if I can make this a win-win for everybody, that we can all have great relationships and support each other. And we're doing that, right? You know, we're supporting each other. Dr. Frazier and I work together on stuff. And it's just great to be in a place where you have Black faces in high places, but not big egos coming along with that. Can you dig a little deeper into that? And then Dr. Robinson, I'd like to get your take on it as well. But what you said about sort of removing your ego as much as possible and forming those relationships, how important has that been in your enormous success as an entrepreneur and as a human being?
It's a great point, Boyce. And I got to say, it has been the foundation of our entrepreneurial success. And you hit the nail on the head. And Dr. George Frazier is one of the pioneers in the space of networking. And that's how you and I met. And this idea of leveraging our might and how you come to these engagements with more of a servant leader's mindset that says, I'm here to be in service to you. And we talk about the servant leader's mindset in the book. And we talk about this African-centered ethos of Ubuntu, this idea that I am because we are. It's an African humanist philosophy that Nelson Mandela perhaps popularized, but it certainly predated his references to Ubuntu, versus the more Eurocentric ethos of I think, therefore I am. One is an individualistic perspective, one is a more community and collectivistic perspective that says I exist only in relation to others. And when I operate from that mindset and that model, I see the interconnectedness that I have with others. I see the responsibility I have to others, and I see the service that I need to be exuding in support of others. And so I think when we get down to the foundation of your mindset, and whether you're in it for self or whether you're in it for others, whether you subscribe to, we talk about success and greatness. Success is what you do for yourself. Greatness is what you do for somebody else. If you feel the calling to success, that's a very individually centered mentality. If you feel the calling to greatness, if that's what's pushing you, what's prodding you, what's driving you to be great, to how can I service other people, then you're down with George Frazier, you're down with Dr. Boyce Watkins, and you're down with Black faces in high places.
Man, I love that. Somebody say something in the chat and congratulate these brothers for the wisdom that's being shared here. So, Dr. Robinson, I appreciate what you guys are talking about with this book, because if you go back to having that sauce, being strategic, authentic, and unapologetic.
That's right.
And then benefiting our community, like that to me was kind of that was how we started the conversation about the book. I really like that, right? And I wonder, do you think, Dr. Robinson, that perhaps we could benefit from teaching our young people about the importance of thinking strategically? My wife's a therapist, and she's a social work professor. That's her area. So we get to have these really fun conversations where you imagine, a finance guy talking to a social work scholar, right? Where she's breaking up all the social side of everything, and I'm sounding like a crazy capitalist. But we meet in the middle, right? We gain an appreciation for each of our perspectives, and then also we talk about things like the subconscious mind, and that's one of our areas of expertise. And one of the things I remember seeing somewhere, and by the way, just so you know, this may not even shape itself into a question. This is like free thought for a moment.
Go ahead.
I remember reading that they said that Black people consume more entertainment than any other group of people. We also consume more social media than any other group of people. And corporations know this. They advertise products to us. And when you read the Nielsen studies, all they say is they basically say, if you want to sell products to Black people, just know they watch more TV than anybody else, and they'll buy anything that a celebrity endorses. That's literally what Nielsen said. So they're talking to these corporations and saying, look, if you want to sell stuff to Black people, just put a celebrity on your laundry detergent, on your cheeseburger, whatever, and they'll buy it. That's what they were saying. And no Black people were in this conversation. They were literally talking about how they can exploit the Black community. So when I read another study that was talking about the what television consumption does to the brain, one thing they said is that it impacts your prefrontal cortex, which minimizes your ability to think strategically. Now, where am I getting at with this? I think that there is a lack of conscious commitment to the idea of teaching our kids to think strategically, and I believe it's costing us big time in terms of wealth, in terms of health, our relationships. Everything from dealing with the cops to dealing with corporate America requires strategy, or dealing with even reproduction. If I'm a man and I got all these women running around me, I got to be strategic, or I'm gonna have babies, mamas, and chaos in my life. What do you think about what I just said, and what comes to mind for someone who is smart and strategic like yourself?
Oh, yeah, you hit it on the head. We need more strategic and critical thinking, and it needs to start young. It's something I struggle with my own children. If you are always watching somebody else, the big thing right now is reaction videos. Literally, they're watching somebody else think and say something. I'm like, hold up. We're not gonna be watching this for 8 hours. No, you got to go do something else. You can read a book, because it's a different way to engage your brain, not passive, it's active. We need to be doing more creation. It's the thing we used to talk about, 15 years ago. How much are we creating versus consuming, right? Mm-hmm. So you can look at that in very social media context and say, how much are we creating on social media? How many of these companies are owned by us, or versus how many of us are consuming it and just taking it in a passive way? So I'm 100% with you. It's a theme that we certainly bring through in the book, that strategic thinking, being thoughtful about how you're going to approach your career, your entrepreneurship, your community building is essential. And so you need to have people around you who are also strategic thinkers. That's the other part of this. It's something we've lived, but it's also something we're encouraging these young people, especially those who we're meeting in colleges and universities, to look around. Don't just hang out with people because they're fun to be with and having a great party. Who can you build a business with? Who will you be going to in 5 and 10 years saying, what's my best next move in terms of business or finance? Get with the folks who have some strategy and some thoughtfulness, because those are the folks who are going to help you and help your community. So it's all part of the same conversation. We need more of it. It's when certainly we want people to buy our book and read it. But one of the themes, no matter where you get it, is that you have to be critical thinking. You have to be strategic about what you're going to be doing, and we got to work together.
Well, I love that a lot. I love that. So, by the way, everybody, I'm speaking with Dr. Randall Pinkett, who is the chairman and CEO of BCT Partners. Also, Dr. Jeffrey Robinson, who is the Prudential Chair in the School of Business at Rutgers University. If you could hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe. And I'm going to ask you brothers each one more question, and then I'll let you guys get back to your busy day. We're talking to two bosses and CEOs here. They ain't got time to just be sitting here hanging out on the internet all day. They got stuff to do, money to make, deals to sign. All right. So anyway, let's and everybody, please give a digital round of applause to these guys, because these guys are very successful, and I'm super proud of everything you guys are doing. So Dr. Pink, I'm going to ask you a question. When we were talking earlier, you started off the conversation, you talked about strategic, unapologetic, and authentic, and also you mentioned benefiting our community. And I thought about that statement you made, and I thought about your background, and I realized, I said, oh, that's right, I'm talking to a boss. I'm not, you're not an employee, you're not a general manager at I don't know, Google or something. Like, you are the CEO. The buck stops with you. You have a lot of leeway to be authentic and to decide when you want to apologize and things like that. A lot of power. What do you think about that? Let's talk about that then, in terms of just the general landscape. I mentioned to you guys in the beginning about how so many of our people end up apologizing constantly, almost like apologizing for nothing, even when you didn't do anything wrong. And you talked about being unapologetic, being authentic, and then also that key part of benefiting the community. Where does that fit into your sort of day-to-day philosophy as a leader, as a Black man, as a human being, especially that part about benefiting the community? Because there's so many people who are in high places who are not benefiting anybody but themselves. How do you draw the line and make that difference in your own life?
We in the book, we talk about the 4 F's, and the 4 F's in many ways delineate your options as you progress through your career, on this very question of how do you navigate the line, as you described it, Dr. Boyce, the line between how do I effectuate change and how am I also strategic at the same time? The first F is to fight. That is to say, something's not right. I need to do something to change the status quo. So I'm going to fight. And it might involve taking a risk. Ask Colin Kaepernick, ask the black coach who sued the NFL. I mean, you're going to take a risk if you take a fight in certain contexts. The second F is to take flight. That is to just run and say, I'm not going to mess with this. I'm gone. The third F is to forego, to say, you know what? I can't deal with this now because I'm not in a position to do it, but I'm going to get at this later. I promise you, when I'm in a better position. And the fourth F is to friend, to bring your enemy close to you, to see if we can collaborate to figure out a solution together. We're less prescriptive about what to fight for in the book than we are to say two things. All four options are legitimate as long as one condition is met. At some point in your career, you have to be able to say you fought for something because somebody fought for you. If you just go through your life foregoing and friending and taking flight and you never fight for anything, then you didn't get the memo that the reason you were there in the first place is because somebody had to take a risk. Somebody had to go out on a limb, because in the absence of anyone taking a risk, the status quo will always remain. Progress is predicated on somebody taking a risk.
I like that. So as long as you fight for something, what do you fight for? It's funny, Dr. Robinson, I remember when I was studying one of Obama's Supreme Court justice nominees, Elena Kagan. And because, I got this call from the White House, and I guess because I had this little podcast, they were like trying to explain to me why she was this great choice for the Black community. I didn't agree. And because I was sort of like, okay, I was looking, I was like, where does she really fight for Black people in her life? And I didn't see any examples of that. In fact, it was actually kind of sad. I think that out of 32 professors she hired at Harvard, not one of them was Black. Not one of them was Native American. Not one was Latino. It was like 29 white males, 2 white females, and an Asian guy or something. It was something crazy, right? And so I literally had to politely say, well, actually, the KKK could not have a worse hiring record when it comes to Black people. So no, I'm going to pass. But that point of, what will you fight for? And I did find a couple areas, where, because I was thinking, like, if you're trying to get on Supreme Court, you pick your battles very wisely, right? You have to be extremely strategic. You don't want to be overly controversial, go too far to the left or right, right? But I saw a couple areas where I said, okay, she fought for this. That tells me who she really is, right? And so that idea of sort of knowing what you fight for, I like that a lot. And so yeah, fight, flight, forego, and friend. So tell me about your journey as are you a full professor at Rutgers now?
Soon to be, yes.
Soon to be. All right. Well, everybody clap for that, because that's very hard to do. My wife's a full professor, and and I know what she went through, and I have so much respect for that. And everybody should know how that's not a typical PhD, right? Like you have the PhDs, then you have the tenured PhD, then you have the full professor. So you're talking to a real sharp brother right here. How do you choose what to fight for? In your experience at Rutgers, and what's that been for you, and what have you fought for that you're most connected to and most proud of?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something I like to talk to younger faculty, people who are new to the game about. There's game. There's a game that everybody has to play. You have to know the rules of those games, and you got to know how those rules get bent sometimes for others. And the question is, well, why not us? The thing that has been very important to me over the years is that I stay connected to the kind of work and the way that I want to do the work that I started with. I've always wanted to do work that was targeted at the betterment of the community. And for me, I was thinking about, you hear all the euphemisms here in a moment, right? I was thinking about urban entrepreneurship, and certainly in a lot of urban areas, we're talking about Black and brown people. Minority entrepreneurship, African-American women entrepreneurs. That's how Dr. Bloxton and I were working on some projects looking at African-American women entrepreneurs of high growth firms. And one of the things I realized along the way is that if I had a platform if I had a platform to stand on and some kind of center or institution that would support me in doing that kind of work, then I can get a lot done. And so coming to Rutgers after being at NYU for 5 years was like a breath of fresh air, because there was a professor there. So you may know her, Professor D.T. Ogilvy.
Yep.
Who was already at Rutgers and was already, making things happen for the community. But she said, your research is interesting, and we want to build a center that addresses urban entrepreneurship and economic development. I said, well, there it is. Now we got a platform. Now we get some resources, which is exactly what we did. We got resources from the government and resources from corporations to be able to train and assist and mentor Black and brown businesses. That it wasn't only for them exclusively, but yet many of them that participated in our programs were. Having an ally, another Black person who was about the big picture, looking at what could be done in the community, that just changed the whole game, because now
she had the sauce.
Yes, exactly. So now you got it. So for me, every step of the way, I've had the right people and the right platform to be able to do excellent work. And that's the difference. I know a lot of folks who are out there, and I know, maybe you and others have experienced this. You're the one and the only one. Nobody out there trying to help you or support you. But I had Dr. Ogilvy. I had Dr. Jerome Williams, who I'm actually succeeding in the Prudential Chair. I had, even some of our white allies, department chairs, and other folks who were really about supporting me and supporting the work that we did. And sometimes, we didn't always agree, but I could be my authentic self, unapologetic and strategic. Now, you talked about sauce. I want to extend your little model you got there. Let's go strategic, authentic, unapologetic, and community engaged.
Yeah,
there it is right there. There it is right
See what
there.
happens when you work together?
That's the special sauce.
Drop the mic. Drop the mic.
There you go.
That is the special sauce right there.
Get your trademark on it. That's my gift. That's my Christmas gift to both of y'all. You can have the trademark. That's yours. That's yours. Man, well, I love this, and I've enjoyed this a lot. And I just want to go ahead and publicly say, if you guys want to ever, if you're ever doing any content or interviews or conversations and you want to use my platform, I'll be happy to share it, man. I just really think the world needs to see people like you, people like us. And also I really hope people watching will understand that, I think this is the future in terms of, or at least better yet, this is a huge dimension of the Black male that you're not going to see on a rap album per se. You're not going to see it necessarily, in some of the magazines and the media, but this is where, this is where your thought leaders are. This is where your millionaires or et cetera are. These are where your real power moves are. When I think about Black faces in high places, I'm thinking about guys like you. And so I commend you so much for your work, and I wish you the best in all your endeavors for sure.
Hey, Dr. Boyce, we appreciate your platform. We appreciate your voice. We appreciate you inviting us to be a part of this space that you've created. And you are the embodiment of the Black faces in high places of which we speak. You embody the sauce, brother. You got the sauce.
That's right. So everybody in here, type the word sauce in the chat. The sauce in the chat. That's strategic, authentic, unapologetic, and community engaged. That's what we need our leaders to have the sauce. We got too many sauceless leaders out here. And you know what food tastes like when they ain't got no sauce. It's bland and dry and no taste right. So there you go. We got that special sauce. So everybody, thank you all for watching the interview. The book is called Black Faces in High Places by Dr. Randall Pinkett, Dr. Jeffrey Robinson. I hope everybody will pick up a copy. I also hope you will take the time to share this interview, because you don't hear conversations like this, all over the place, all over media. But we need to hear this kind of thing. And also, last but not least, if you want to go visit my website and take a look at some of the stuff we have going on in the Black Business School, please feel free to visit boycewatkins.com. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. God bless you. And we will talk to you soon. Take care now. Peace.